From orbit, the ocean looks immensely deep, yet much of its biological activity gathers in a remarkably thin upper skin. The puzzle begins with scale, because the sunlit layer occupies only a fraction of the water column. When you descend, color vanishes quickly, plants disappear, and encounters with large moving animals become less frequent. Above, plankton bloom, fish feed, seabirds dive, and whales cross patches of concentrated prey. Below, the available living space expands enormously, but usable energy generally becomes scarcer with every darkening meter. The unequal distribution is not caused by a single barrier separating a living surface from a lifeless abyss. Deep water contains diverse organisms, extensive microbial communities, and highly adapted animals sustained by limited energy. Yet the main engine supplying organic matter to most marine ecosystems operates where sunlight still reaches. That engine is photosynthesis, performed chiefly by microscopic phytoplankton, drifting within the illuminated upper ocean. Their cells capture light energy and use carbon dioxide to build organic material that other organisms can consume. Because light enters from above, energy production begins near the boundary between atmosphere and sea. Waves and currents then gather, disperse, or submerge living particles across a constantly changing surface landscape. The apparent crowd is therefore a shifting mosaic, dense in some waters and sparse in others. Its shape follows light, nutrients, temperature, mixing, and predation rather than simple proximity to air. Understand the crowd. The investigation must follow energy from sunlight into bodies and then downward. The euphotic zone is the depth range where enough light remains for net photosynthetic production. Its lower boundary varies with suspended particles, colored dissolved material, plankton abundance, and the angle of the sun. Clear tropical water may transmit blue light deeply, while turbid coastal water can darken within far shallower depths. Light alone is insufficient because phytoplankton also require nitrogen, phosphorus, iron, and other essential materials. Near the surface, those nutrients may be depleted when growing cells consume them faster than mixing replaces them. At depth, nutrients accumulate through decomposition, but darkness prevents ordinary photosynthesis from using them. Productive waters emerge where light and nutrients overlap, often through seasonal mixing, upwelling, or river delivery. In coastal upwelling, winds move surface water aside, and colder nutrient-rich water rises into the illuminated zone. Phytoplankton respond by multiplying, grazers consume them, and fish arrive where food becomes concentrated. This Q-action consequence sequence turns physical circulation into visible assemblies of feeding animals. Seasonal blooms follow another sequence when increasing light meets nutrients restored by winter mixing. Cells divide rapidly, zooplankton populations grow, and predators exploit a temporary pulse before nutrients decline. If you could map the surface by food availability, it would resemble moving islands rather than an even pasture. Many small fish remain near these islands because leaving them would increase search costs and reduce feeding success. Tunas, sharks, seabirds, and marine mammals may track fronts where currents compress prey into narrow bands. Their movements are behavioral responses to concentration. not evidence that every surface region is rich. Warm surface water can accelerate metabolism and growth within physiological limits. But excessive heat creates stress. Gas exchange with the atmosphere and photosynthesis often support oxygenated surface habitats, especially where mixing remains active. However, warm water holds less dissolved oxygen, so temperature does not make the surface universally favorable. Buoyancy adaptations help plankton remain aloft through oils, spines, flattened shapes, or active swimming. Without those adaptations, many cells would sink away from light faster than turbulence could return them. Small body size also slows sinking and improves nutrient exchange across a high surface area. These verified mechanisms explain why production and feeding opportunities commonly cluster high in the water. The pattern becomes sharper when energy budgets are followed below the euphotic zone. Phytoplankton are eaten, leak dissolved compounds, die, or aggregate into particles that begin sinking. Bacteria and animals consume much of this material during descent, leaving less energy for deeper communities. The declining flux resembles a dwindling inheritance, repeatedly divided before reaching the abyssal seafloor. Sediment traps directly collect some sinking particles, although swimmers, currents, and collection efficiency complicate interpretation. Depth profiles record light, oxygen, temperature, and chlorophyll signals. But chlorophyll is not identical to productivity. Satellite ocean color reveals broad surface patterns, yet clouds and water optics limit what can be inferred below. Plankton nets capture larger drifting organisms, while small cells and fragile forms can pass through or break apart. Together, these methods establish concentration patterns without producing a complete census of all marine life. That limitation matters because the phrase most ocean life can refer to abundance, biomass, diversity, or metabolic activity. Microbial cells are extraordinarily numerous throughout deep water and subseafloor sediments, despite extremely low individual activity. Deep-sea species can also be highly diverse, even where animals are widely separated, and food arrives intermittently. The conservative claim is that most ocean primary production occurs in sunlit waters, concentrating many dependent food webs nearby. It does not mean that most species, cells, or total habitat volume must occupy the surface. Nor does every surface organism rely immediately on living phytoplankton at the moment it is observed. Some predators visit briefly, some migrants feed at night, and some animals cross the layer during reproduction. Many copepods detect changing light, rise after dusk, graze, and descend before visual predators become efficient. This migration brings deep residents into the surface crowd without making them permanent surface inhabitants. Flying fish accelerate from predators, break through the interface, and glide before returning to the same productive waters. Their escape uses the boundary itself, showing that the surface is habitat as well as energy source. Sea turtles may cross nutrient-poor expanses to reach feeding zones shaped by currents and coastal production. Whales can travel between breeding grounds and high-latitude feeding areas where seasonal light drives intense food pulses. These journeys demonstrate that abundance near the surface reflects predictable rewards separated across space and time. Exceptions test the sunlight explanation rather than overturning it. Hydrothermal vents support chemosynthetic microbes using chemical energy, forming local food webs independent of current sunlight. Cold seeps likewise sustain specialized communities where reduced chemicals reach oxygenated seawater. However, these habitats occupy limited areas and do not replace photosynthesis as the dominant energy source for the ocean overall. Even vent animals may depend partly on oxygen, ultimately produced by photosynthesis, linking the systems indirectly. The surface crowd affects atmospheric carbon dioxide because phytoplankton exchange carbon with air through growth, respiration, and sinking. When grazing creates fecal pellets, those compact particles can carry organic matter downward faster than isolated cells. If you follow one pellet, microbes and animals progressively consume it, reducing what survives to great depth. This biological pump influences carbon storage, but its efficiency changes among regions and seasons. Surface warming can strengthen density stratification, making it harder for deep nutrients to reach illuminated water. Where nutrient supply falls, productivity may decline even while the sun continues shining brightly. In other places, altered winds, melting ice, or changing currents may increase nutrients or extend growing seasons. The response is regional, preventing a single forecast for the entire ocean surface. Marine heat waves can exceed tolerances, displace predators, change plankton communities, and reorganize feeding grounds. Coral bleaching illustrates a surface-linked vulnerability when prolonged heat disrupts the partnership between corals and their symbiotic dinoflagellates. Coastal nutrient pollution creates a different sequence by stimulating blooms that later decay and consume oxygen. Fish then flee, become trapped, or die when low oxygen water removes usable habitat beneath productive surfaces. Fishing pressure often concentrates where animals aggregate, making biologically rich patches economically attractive and ecologically exposed. Protecting only fixed locations may miss mobile fronts, seasonal blooms, and migrating predators that follow shifting productivity. Understanding the crowd, therefore, requires tracking the moving intersection of energy, nutrients, water, and animal decisions. It also requires respecting the deep communities that survive on the smaller fraction exported from above. Every sinking fragment links a bright, crowded layer with organisms living far beyond direct sunlight. The surface is not a separate world, but the energetic entrance to a connected vertical ecosystem. Changes in surface production can therefore alter deep food supply long after the conditions above have shifted. Future evidence must measure production, biomass, and diversity separately instead of treating life as one interchangeable quantity. Evidence of warming disruption would appear when bloom timing shifts away from arriving grazers or fish larvae. Depth-resolved results must distinguish permanent surface residents from migrants making brief nightly visits. Across fronts, stronger physical convergence should consistently predict improved feeding opportunities for selected predators. Deep responses may follow changes above by months or years. so immediate agreement should not be expected. Regional patterns must persist across seasons before they justify conclusions about the global ocean. If you return to the first view from orbit, the ocean still appears uniformly blue and endlessly deep. Closer inspection reveals sunlight entering only the upper layers, where drifting cells turn radiation into edible matter. Currents gather those cells, grazers pursue them, and hunters converge wherever the resulting food becomes worth the journey. Below, respiration and sinking steadily thin that energy, while specialized communities endure on what remains. Some deep habitats build local chemosynthetic oases, proving that sunlight is dominant without being exclusive. The crowd near the surface is consequently an energy pattern, not a border beyond which life ends. Its density shifts with seasons, weather, nutrients, and behavior, so no permanent surface map can contain it. What appears from space as a featureless skin is a moving engine that supports lives throughout the ocean. The scientifically honest answer is that sunlight concentrates marine production near the surface, while the deep sea remains vast, alive, and incompletely counted.